Chapter 661, as terrifying and dreadful as it is. With his golden core stage cultivation, Light was much stronger than Western Nefarious Sangha, and his flying sword was like being assisted by a spirit. Strike upon strike was dished out, stirring and smashing Western Nefarious Sangha's magic wand. The moment the monk spurted out blood, the sea of flames was pierced through by the flying sword as it hacked the two bloodthirsty chiropterans afterward. Come back. Western Nefarious Sangha was so frightened that his soul almost flew away. He hastily rushed to collect the two bloodthirsty chiropterans the moment those sword images hacked them, and then retreated back into the middle of the stone inscriptions and statues. His hands kept conjuring seals, and, with his blood as the guide, he activated the array in the blink of an eye. You're indeed very strong. Strong enough to make me feel inferior. But this array of mine originates from an ancient scripture I've studied. Back when those powerful 8 Buddhas attacked me for 7 days and 7 nights, they were unable to break it in the slightest. This array even injured the 7 of them to the essence, so they had to retreat in defeat. Come inside and kill me if you have the ability, furiously shouted Western Nefarious Sangha as he glared at his opponent. He was pained due to his magic weapon being destroyed. Light hesitated. He was confident that he could break this array by unleashing a mighty move, and yet he could not put it to use either. Despite possessing golden core stage power, the chances that he could escape once the whole mountain collapsed were slim. More so that Tang Xiu was still here. It's just a skill not worth to speak of. A sneering comment came from Tang Xiu as he gave a look of "don't be impatient" to Light, and then floated to the front of the array. His hands kept conjuring seals in the air, as the previously invisible and colorless light curtains of the array then swayed all of a sudden the moment after. As the ripples appeared and surged forward, a faint traces of cracks emerged. Destroy its base. A silver needle suddenly shot out from Tang Xiu's hand. The moment it penetrated through the crack, it hit the rock at the feet of Western Nefarious Sangha and easily pierced it. Boom. The array instantly shattered and the light curtain vanished in the blink of an eye. Even the 12 stone statues exploded at this moment, broken by the explosion and scattered around. After retreating several meters, Tang Xiu waved his hand to block the spattered stones and gravel as he looked at the horrified Western Nefarious Sangha and said, "Maybe I would not be able to figure out much if you were to use other methods, but you're still worlds apart if you want to play with me on arrays." Western Nefarious Sangha retreated tens of meters back. As he raised his hand to wipe the blood off of the corner of his mouth, he stared intently at Tang Xiu and said, "I'm really baffled. You can arm each and every subordinate of yours with flying swords, indicating that you or some of your men are proficient in arrays since you would need to lay out an array to aid in refining flying swords. I won't hide it from you. This array is only one of my many deadly trump cards, and I still have another that I have yet to use. Of course, I'll tell you something. The second trump card of mine is a method that will make me perish with you. Even if I can kill you, I'll also die here." Tang Xiu slightly knitted his brows and looked at the monk with a chilling cold expression. Suddenly, he smiled and said, "Do you think you really can unleash your final trump card?" "What do you mean?" Western Nefarious Sangha's heart jolted and his pupils contracted in an instant. His strong figure stiffly moved several meters away in a flash as a flying sword suddenly appeared out of the blue, and swept toward the spot where he just stood. Following which, a black silhouette emerged a dozen meters away from him and threw away his arm. Bloody hell! Western Nefarious Sangha roared curses. A pungent green mist spread out from his armpit and the rolling green mist turned into a pair of arms, pulling his chopped arm back directly. While hastily avoiding the sword light that came shooting fast at him, he pressed the arm into its original place. Dark, who wore a black robe and black mask, was twice faster than Western Nefarious Sangha. Even though the monk tried to avoid, the sword light still swept past his back and inflicted a long, bloody wound. At this time, Light's figure shot forward like an artillery shell and launched a strike on the other side of Western Nefarious Sangha. Attacking and killing this monk alone would take some effort, but with the two combining their forces, their strength greatly soared in an instant. The two flying swords hovered in the air, blooming sword lights that looked like lotus flowers. The dense and numerous sword lights then transformed into a giant dragon that flashed towards Western Nefarious Sangha. Demonic Flame Saraira. Western Nefarious Sangha released a dark, ball-like Saraira with a black flame burning around it. After he forced out a mass of blood essence, the black flame instantly turned into balefire and enveloped the dozens of meters of the area around him in the blink of an eye. A miniature version of the black Saraira appeared out of the blue and turned into a black dragon in a flash as it shot toward the sword dragon. Boom! The black dragon was smashed and scattered, but the power of the sword dragon drastically plummeted and even showed signs of collapsing. However, under Light and Dark's control, the sword dragon still flushed toward Western Nefarious Sangha. Escutcheon of Destruction. The moment Western Nefarious Sangha had blood flowing out of his 7 orifices, a black shield was released from his body to the front and guarded him. The sword dragon then hit the shield. Cracks appeared on the shield's upper layer, yet it was not completely destroyed like his magic wand but blocked the sword dragon before it hit Western Nefarious Sangha. Western Nefarious Sangha's body was like falling leaves as the monk heavily slammed onto the walls of the cave dozens of meters away, and crashed down loudly. Blood spurted out from his mouth at this time, as he gained a deathly pale complexion. "You're good for being able to block our joint strike." Light's feet stepped in the air and returned to his flying sword. He seemed like he was going to fly toward Western Nefarious Sangha yet again. Golden Armored Zombie, who stood at the entrance of the cave, had been paying attention to the situation inside. Never once had he dreamed that Light and Dark would be so formidable. Neither did he expect that after they joined forces the two could unleash such a terrifying power. If it was him who got attacked by them, then, just one strike a while ago would destroy the powerful body he was always proud, and the only path open for him would be death. One strike of their collaborated power was enough to kill and smite him to smithereens. At this moment, Golden Armored Zombie suddenly felt very lucky inwardly, feeling fortunate that he did not continue to become Tang Xiu's enemy, else he would have already died now, wouldn't he? A glint flashed in Tang Xiu's eyes. He raised his hand and shouted, "Light, Dark. Spare his life for now." Light stared for a moment and instantly stopped, while Dark released black smoke and her whole figure disappeared. Tang Xiu treaded forward in the air and came to the front of Western Nefarious Sangha, and said, "You have endless cards up your sleeves, and also have many treasures as well. However, I can see that you're very afraid of death. You're still unwilling to resort to perishing together with us even at this most essential moment. Such being the case, I'll give you a chance to preserve your life." Severely wounded as he was at present, Western Nefarious Sangha's body was battered by hundreds of sword lights, but he temporarily sealed his wounds with his true essence to stop the bleeding. He was even secretly prepared to use that last deadly trump card if Light and Dark attacked him again. Tang Xiu's words, however, gave him a feeling of going from hell to heaven. Under what conditions? Western Nefarious Sangha got up in an instant with his back leaning on the mountain wall. "You know my secrets, but I can't trust you enough considering your character," said Tang Xiu slowly. "In this case, I must control your life and death so that you can preserve your puny life. As long as you ease your soul and let me cast a ban on it, not only can you stay alive, there will also be great benefits for you in the future." With contracted pupils, Western Nefarious Sangha suddenly asked in astonishment, "Do you know the method to rule one's soul?" "You actually know about it?" interjected Tang Xiu, astounded. Western Nefarious Sangha let out a wan smile and said, "The ancient scripture I obtained has a record about it. One who gets controlled by it can only become a puppet. The reason why I fought Golden Armored Zombie for innumerable times is that I wanted to use this soul-ruling technique on him. But it's a pity that my strength is slightly inferior to his, so I was unable to make it come true even if I had lots of cards up my sleeve. The soul-ruling technique you described is different from mine." Tang Xiu shook his head. "The soul-ruling spell I will use will only cast a seal on your soul, with which I can decide your death with a thought if you dare to betray me. You will still retain your intelligence and freedom to do whatever you want to do just like before. Why you really will do that to me? Western Nefarious Sunga's expression changed and he stared intently at Tang Xiu, trying to see whatever hints were there. You'll die now if I will it so. Don't think that you still have means to perish together, for you have yet to see what means I have, said Tang Xiu straightforwardly. Now, you only have 2 roads ahead. The first one is for you to submit to me and have the seal cast on you, whereas the second one is death. I have countless ways to kill you and ensure myself to be safe and sound. Western Nefarious Sunga's expression was constantly changing. He did not know whether he should believe in Tang Xiu, and yet he was afraid that there would only have the end of the road ahead of him if he was to refuse. He was in a dilemma and struggled inwardly for a long while before he eventually nodded and released his soul. With a faint smile, Tang Xiu quickly cast the soul-ruling spell on his soul. After finishing it, he said with satisfaction, "One who knows to act according to circumstances is a wise one. Your life is in my hands from his moment onward, thus you must obey all of my orders unconditionally." Western Nefarious Sunga could sense that his fate was controlled by Tang Xiu. But as things had already gotten to this point, so he could only sigh inwardly as he nodded and respectfully said, "I will do everything you bid me do in the future. There's nothing I want you to deal with for the time being." Tang Xiu waved his hand. "You are to stay here and cultivate well. Also, I'll impart you a new cultivation technique that may help you to cultivate to the peak of nascent Buddha stage. I will contact you later if there's something I want you to do." After saying that, he took out a jade slip and recorded a cultivation technique of the Buddhist school and then threw it to Western Nefarious Sunga, saying, "My surname is Tang Xiu. The owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall, to where you must come every year to its HQ in Jingmen Island." Understood. Western Nefarious Sunga nodded respectfully. While pointing at Golden Armored Zombie, Tang Xiu continued, "You must not blame him, for I was the one who spared his life and gave him some benefits as well, so he was naturally willing to tell me about you. What I demanded from him is very simple. He's not allowed to hurt any ordinary person and I forbade him to kill and rob people for their possessions, which will also be the same thing I demand from you." Chapter 662, Artificer. Inside the spacious cave, a raging fire was burning under the demon god spirit devourer cauldron, whereas Tang Xiu was standing in front of it and constantly throwing pieces of jade inside the cauldron and conjuring Taoist techniques and secret arts. Amidst the mysterious aura, the jades went through the process of liquefaction and formed various shapes according to the images inside Tang Xiu's mind: bottles, boxes, and buckets. All of them made of jade. While enduring the terrifying heat, Western Nefarious Sunga looked at Tang Xiu's every action, dumbfounded and tongue-tied. He watched as jade bottles, jade boxes, and a jade bucket flew out from the demon god soul devourer cauldron and then disappeared when Tang Xiu raised his hand. As a cultivator himself, he was naturally aware that cultivators possessed numerous means and magical abilities, though he himself was only able to arrange a simple array and cast several simple magical spells. Artificer refining techniques. It was the ability Western Nefarious Sunga had once dreamed of learning. However, he also knew that the refining techniques of artificers were too abstruse. It would require one to have a good command in controlling true fire, mastery on arrays, the knowledge on the uses of refining many materials, and many others. The comprehensive amalgamation of these abilities would be needed in order to successfully refine the devices or tools, and also the method to augment and amplify the might of the devices. "It's nearly done." A loud voice came from Tang Xiu's mouth. When the last piece of jade was thrown into the demon god spirit devourer cauldron, his hands conjured a seal and, 10 seconds after, the last 1 foot long and half-foot wide jade box flew out from the inside and then was stored inside his interspatial ring. Inside the demon god spirit devourer cauldron remained a lump of warm jade quintessence. After it floated in front of Tang Xiu, his hands quickly drew inscribing lines of an array, As visible light then connected to the dense jade quintessence lump, the pattern of the array constantly flowing into it. Aerolite essence. Tang Xiu quickly glanced at Western Nefarious Sangha and shouted in a deep tone. The monk suddenly snapped back to his senses and instantly threw a fist-sized aerolite essence to Tang Xiu. After Tang Xiu caught it, he threw it into the demon god spirit devourer cauldron along with 2 fist-sized sky sandstones, and with his last star fragment stone. Time fleeted by. The demon god spirit devourer cauldron was faintly shaking after Tang Xiu threw the jade quintessence into it. The true fire was blazing more intensely all of a sudden. After a long time burning, Tang Xiu waved his hand to remove the cauldron's lid while his body then rose and floated midair. The time to inscribe runes came. A glittering green flute flew out from the demon god spirit devourer cauldron and Tang Xiu stretched his hand out to catch it. At this time, he released the blood-guzzler dagger and unceasingly inscribed exquisite and elegant patterns of a dragon and a dancing phoenix on the jade flute. The exquisite pattern of the coiling dragon and phoenix then took shape, as either the 5-clawed dragon or the spread-wings phoenix was so skillfully imitated and indistinguishable from the original, as they were so lifelike. Quiver. As Tang Xiu carved the seal runes on the jade flute, an incomparably magnificent resplendent light immediately emitted out from it. Tang Xiu waved his hand to completely destroy the raging flame symbol and put out the true fire. After collecting the demon god spirit devourer cauldron into his interspatial ring, he looked at the jade flute in his hand that he just successfully crafted with a satisfied expression. It could only be considered as a magic treasure previously, but after he carved a special array of runes on it, calling it a magic flute was not an exaggeration, as the object gained magical power on its own. Western Nefarious Sangha, do you want to hear me play a song for you? Tang Xiu turned around and asked with a smile. You will play me the flute? All right. I'll be listening. Western Nefarious Sangha was surprised. Tang Xiu lightly smiled and melodious flute sounds floated out in an instant. The sound of the flute was very beautiful, fascinating, and mesmerizing, while the fluttering note seemingly had a magical force within, making Western Nefarious Sangha not help but be attracted to the flute's sound. His state of mind gradually relaxed, and along with a blurriness that covered his sight, the immortal world was finally presented to him. Enthrallment. It was like an endless temptation, and Western Nefarious Sangha was pulled deeply to immerse himself within. His eyes were blurry and a smile was painted on his face. The wrinkles on his face were stretched out and a smile covered his old face. Demonic attack. Tang Xiu shouted inwardly, and the melodious sound of the flute abruptly changed, from the previous mellow tone to a violent explosive gale. But in the eyes of Western Nefarious Sangha, that fairyland-like world instantly began to submerge. The shining golden light in the firmament was covered with black flames from all sides, and countless black fireballs containing destructive force continuously fell from the sky. The land shook, rivers flowed backward, and every beautiful thing in the world was reduced and scattered into fragments. Cracks were formed and expanded while the lava billowed upward. Countless humans, birds, animals, and beasts were screaming, howling, as they were swallowed and smashed. Hideous and sinister Ashura-looking monsters descended from the vault of heaven riding on the devastating black fireballs, carrying weapons, and jumping down to smash all walk of lives all over the world. Corpses were littered on the ground and covered the land everywhere, while blood was flowing over the ground like rivers. Inside the world sketched and depicted by the flute's sound, Western Nefarious Sangha could only see his family and friends being either ruthlessly engulfed by the magma or killed more cruelly by the savage Ashura monsters. In front of him, there was only his former son remaining, who was about to be hacked by an Ashura monster's blade. Sorrow and grief, wrath and rage. The emotion swallowed him up like a tide. He raised his wand, wanting to protect his son. And yet, the world before his eyes abruptly changed and he could not move his raised hand. At this time, Tang Xiu stopped blowing the flute and watched the raging expression on Western Nefarious Sangha's face. He folded his arms and smiled with indifference as he said, well, the refinement of this magic weapon could be said as successful since its demonic sound can drag you deep into a phantasmagoric state. If there was someone around you at that moment, it would be very easy to kill you. Was it all an illusion? Western Nefarious Sunga's pupils contracted and his body shook. He staggeringly stepped backward and then looked at Tang Xiu with fear on his face, like he was seeing a ghost in broad daylight. That's right. If anyone wanted to kill me a while ago, I would never have the chance to detect them. Even an ordinary person could have killed me. How did you do it? Asked Western Nefarious Sunga with a bit dry voice. There was fear on his face. Playing the flute is nothing but a trivial skill, to be frank. Tang Xiu smiled and said, what I played before is called the Song of Apocalypse. A demonic cultivator who was proficient in music created this song after spending a lot of time and energy, before finally composing the song. Anyways, forget it. You won't understand it even if I tell you more considering your current knowledge. Western Nefarious Sunga gulped down and let out a hollow laugh with an embarrassed expression. He was already shocked to the point of dread ever since Tang Xiu and his two subordinates came here and unleashed their endless means. Needless to say about that young man and a young woman whose strength was at golden core stage, Tang Xiu's refining techniques were enough to make him look up to them. Whoosh! A projectile made of stencil paper was shot at him. After Western Nefarious Sunga caught it, he looked at Tang Xiu in a surprised expression. What is this, boss? I borrowed your treasure to refine something, so it's only natural that I give you something in exchange. Tang Xiu smiled. That is half of an essence amassing pill. It can increase strength worth 30 years of cultivation. Unfortunately, I have no precious medicinal herbs, else I could easily refine 1 or 2 essence amassing pills. Half of this pill would add 30 years of cultivation? Western Nefarious Sunga was greatly shaken inwardly. His hand that held the essence amassing pill was trembling. Although he had taken a lot of precious medicinal herbs such as Tianshan snow lotus, several hundred years old fleeceflower root, and nearly 1,000 years old spirit affinity mushroom, yet, none of those medicinal herbs had the effect of increasing his cultivation by this much. What a treasure! Western Nefarious Sunga stared at the essence amassing pill in his hand with a fervent expression, and could not wait to immediately swallow it. However, with Tang Xiu present in front of him, he could only suppress the desire. He then said gratefully, "Thank you so much, boss. Leave the ceremony out. There's no need to be overly courteous." Tang Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, "I already told you that you will get many benefits as long as you really submit yourself to me wholeheartedly. All right, it's about time I leave this place. I have stayed here for a couple of days already. Boss, maybe I can give you some precious medicinal herbs if you need them," said Western Nefarious Sunga hastily. "Do you have precious herbs?" asked Tang Xiu with a surprised expression. Other types of objects are not many in existence in the western region, but we can find many precious herbs here, said Western Nefarious Sunga. I have dug out a lot of precious herbs and planted them in a nearby cave. I usually take them as a medicated diet since I don't know anything related to alchemical techniques, though. Tang Xiu was overjoyed and immediately said, "Take me there to have a look, then." All right. Western Nefarious Sunga brought Tang Xiu out of the cave. He nodded at Light, who sat cross-legged in the cave entrance, and then flew toward the left side of the pathway halfway up to the mountain. A minute later, the two men arrived in front of the entrance to a dark cave. Just as Tang Xiu entered the cave, he was surprised and amazed to find 6 fist-sized soul tranquilizer stones embedded on the ceiling of the cave, while the most ingenious thing here was a legendary luminous night pearl placed in the center of those 6 stones, its bright milky white light illuminating the entire cave. No. That is not an ordinary luminous night pearl. Is it a solidified dragon's eye? Tang Xiu suddenly turned his head and asked in a deep tone, "Is everything here arranged by you?" "No, I did not arrange it. Western Nefarious Sangha hurriedly shook his head. It was already like this when I found this place. I've spent a lot of effort and used all sorts of ways I could think of to remove those special ores and that luminous night pearl, and yet I failed every time. Since I found that the spiritual energy here is very rich, then I transformed it into a herb garden. You can see it for yourself. Those are herbs I planted. Some are from seeds I found while some others originated from other places and I transplanted them here. Tang Xiu also saw that there were dozens of precious herbs planted in the over 1,000 square meters of space in the cave, and all of them were very rare and precious herbs. What surprised him the most was that some of those herbs were several hundred years old and there were even 2 millennium wild ginseng. Great. This is great. Tang Xiu nodded with satisfaction. He waved his right hand and layers of qi uprooted dozens of the herbs and stored them in the jade box he just refined. Upon hearing Tang Xiu's praise, Western Nefarious Sangha turned a bit excited. He looked at Tang Xiu with fervent eyes, wanting to get more concocted pills. Go to Shanghai 2 months later. I will give a few more concocted pills by then. That's right, I have a holy healing medicine here, I'll give it to you first. After saying that, Tang Xiu threw the holy healing medicine to the monk. He did not take all the herbs planted in this cave since he could feel that the spiritual energy in this place was very rich, and was very suitable for the growth of herbs. Chapter 663, Black Winterwood. Though Tang Xiu tried all sorts of methods to remove the 6 soul tranquilizer stones embedded on the ceiling of the cave, all of his efforts were for naught as the stones did not budge at all, and neither could the solidified dragon's eye in the center be taken. He finally conjectured that these 6 soul tranquilizer stones and the solidified dragon's eye formed a peerless abstruse and mysterious array he could not figure out despite his deep knowledge and accomplishments in array formations. In life, something will be yours if it's meant to be yours. Otherwise, just let it be. Tang Xiu sighed with a helpless expression and gave up while looking at the 6 soul tranquilizer stones and the solidified dragon's eye. If Gu Yan's injury had not been healed, then he would not hesitate to level this mountain and take them. But now that Gu Yan had been healed from her injury, though a soul tranquilizer stone was an excellent treasure, he was not that eager to take it away. After leaving the cave, Tang Xiu did not go back to the Western Nefarious Sangha's immortal abode. But he ordered the monk to keep an eye on Golden Armored Zombie and keep him in check to not do anything that could harm humans again, before he left with light directly, quietly followed by the concealed dark. As the trio arrived at the place the SUV was parked, Mo directly started the car and took them back to Longquan village. Tang Xiu, you're back. Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin, who had been waiting for a few days, had already received from their men that their 2 SUVs had appeared outside Longquan village, so they rushed out, and their expressions seemed just like they had a heavy burden lifted off their hearts. Relax. The problem is solved. Tang Xiu chuckled. Brother Miao, that Grandma Shipo is Western Nefarious Sangha's accomplice, and they have been collaborating for nearly 100 years, so you should not trouble yourself to go looking for her again. Regardless of anything, she and that monk will never dare to set their eyes on you anymore in the future. Miao Wentong's face was blank. He could not understand what Tang Xiu said at all. After hesitating for a short moment, he asked, what exactly happened? I planned to exterminate him, but it never crossed my mind that he was such a scaredy cat and was afraid of death so much. So I decided to spare him and used a special method to control him. Tang Xiu smiled and explained. If anything, it can be said that I now control his life and death, thus he will never dare to have any bad intentions toward you again. Western Nefarious Sangha has a very high cultivation, how come you're able to control him? Asked Miao Wentong in a shock. Tang Xiu only smiled in response and did not elaborate. Although Miao Wentong was a friend and their relationship could be said to be very close, it was still not deep to the point that he would reveal his secrets. Various thoughts swirled inside Xiao Mingjin's mind. After seeing that Tang Xiu was unwilling to elaborate more on this matter, he immediately asked, now that the problem is solved, are we going to leave this place? Tang Xiu looked at Miao Wentong. The latter hesitated for a while and then said, I need to go back to Haiqing province since the matter has been resolved. A lot of my men who came with me here were killed, so I need to deal with their funeral arrangements. Tang Xiu nodded without speaking and asked if Xiaomingzhen was going to Blue City. Their group did not stay any longer and directly went to Kana's airport. Outside the airport, Tang Xiu quietly put a jade box into Miao Wentong's pocket and whispered, I hope you don't feel upset since I spared Western Nefarious Sangha's life. This is an essence amassing pill. It can help promote your cultivation a level, so your trip here won't be for naught. Miao Wentong's expression moved, and he realized that Tang Xiu did not want Xiaomingzhen to notice him giving him this concocted pill, thus he nodded with an unperturbed expression. He was indeed a bit vexed inwardly that Tang Xiu did not kill Western Nefarious Sangha and even recruited the monk to work for him instead. Though Tang Xiu saved his life, many of his men were killed, that was undoubtedly a huge loss in and of itself. This concocted pill that could increase his cultivation for a level, however, made that upsetting feeling vanish. Half an hour later, Miao Wentong took his secretary and 2 bodyguards to board the plane and left, while Xiaomingzhen took the plane and flew to Blue City afterward. Tang Xiu himself did not leave with them because there was still something he needed to do, return the favor from someone. As for Light and Dark, who came later, Tang Xiu gave them all the herbs he obtained and told them to transport them back to Ji Qimei to be concocted. Following which he ordered them to leave. Hello, Jia Weili. It's Tang Xiu. After sitting in the Wrangler SUV, Tang Xiu dialed Jia Weili's cell number. Hello, Mr. Tang. What about your business? Is it done? Replied Jia Weili with a smile. Yeah, it's done, and those friends of mine have already left as well, said Tang Xiu. Anyways, I'm on the way out of the airport to return your cars. Tell me your address, I'm going to see you now. The dirt road was muddy, grumpy with gravels, and they even had to pass through a dozen dilapidated bridges. After which, Tang Xiu and his men finally arrived at the place where Jia Weili told him, the Vaultgate Horse Ranch. Welcome, Mr. Tang. Donning blue overalls and boots, Jia Weili was waiting for a long time, thus he warmly welcomed them along with the 2 tough men beside him. Tang Xiu let out a faint smile and shook hands with him, saying, It would be uncouth if I didn't visit you before leaving Kana's, wouldn't it? Besides, though you helped me due to Uncle Yuan, this Tang Xiu always remembered this favor, Jia Weili. Please accept this gift, it's just a little token to show my respect to you. The smile on Jia Weili's face became wider. After receiving the jade bottle handed over by Tang Xiu, he exclaimed in surprise, Wow, what a good thing. This is a beautifully carved fine jade. This one is definitely not ordinary craftsmanship. Mr. Tang, this gift is too expensive, I don't dare to accept it. The platoon leader will definitely curse me if he knows. Isn't it just a jade bottle? Tang Xiu stared at Jia Weili with a strange expression and was nearly unable to restrain himself from laughing. He suddenly remembered the story about a man who bought a glittering casket and gave back the pearls to the seller and could not help but feel funny inside, though he still replied, Well, for you to call me Mr. Tang is like you think of me as a stranger, Jia Weili. If you don't mind, please call me Tang Xiu or Brother Tang. Jia Weili quickly glanced at Moo and the 11 men behind Tang Xiu, as the smile on his face became even more brilliant. And yet, he did not retract his hand that received the jade bottle. Brother Tang. Brother Jia. Tang Xiu called him with the new address with a smile, and then said, Anyways, it is said that men regard others as strangers at the first meeting and friends the second time. We are now friends regardless of your relationship with Uncle Yuan. So, presenting a gift to a friend is what's supposed to happen, right? This. Jia Weili could tell that Tang Xiu's identity was extraordinary. He even phoned Yuan Zhengxian to inquire about his identity after seeing him. Yuan Zhengxian, however, told him very little, only disclosing Tang Shou's status as the owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation. He could see the sincerity in Tang Shou's expression as he nodded and said with a smile, "All right, then. I'll accept this gift." "Thank you, Brother Tang." "Brother Jia, what I'm gifting you is not exactly this jade bottle, but the thing inside it," said Tang Shou with a smile. Jia Weili stared blankly. His face immediately turned red and awkwardly asked, "Is there something else inside? What exactly is it?" After saying that, he then was about to open the bottle's cap. Tang Shou stopped him and smilingly said, "There's a drop of special medicine inside. Pour this drop of medicine into the water when you are taking a bath. It has a very good effect on improving your body. But remember, you will feel itchiness and pain while at it, so you must endure it." Inwardly, Jia Weili was a bit unable to take the mystifying explanation from Tang Shou seriously, but he still raised the jade bottle as he laughed and said, "All right. I'll try to use it when I go back and take a bath. Anyways, shall we go inside, Brother Tang? This is a horse ranch that I and a few friends of mine just set up recently. I'll give you one of the good horses if you're interested." "A good horse?" Tang Shou could not help but let out a wan smile. He was not that interested in horses. He could go to Resting Cemetery Island to take a savage beast as a mount if he wanted to. Not to mention that those savage beasts were much stronger than good horses, to begin with. The second floor of the exquisite small building was used by the workers of the horse ranch to live, whereas Jia Weili used the first floor as his office. When Tang Shou strode into the office along with Jia Weili enthusiastically leading him inside, his eyes were instantly set on the 8-person square table inside. "It's made of black winterwood?" With his keen eyes and observation, Tang Shou could instantly judge the texture and material quality of the 8-person square table. Despite having experienced many things, he could not help but have his heart jolted at this very moment. For some cultivators with special abilities, black winterwood was absolutely akin to a treasure, as this type of wood could play special roles when being used to create furniture, inscribed with arrays. Black winterwood, however, was the most difficult material to carve arrays on, and yet it was the best wood after the engraving process was done. Back when Tang Shou was in the Immortal world and had yet to break through to the Immortal realm, the place he used to stay had a set of furniture made of this type of black winterwood lumber carved with a spirit amassing array on it. Such an arrangement made his manor simply turn into a feng shui blessed land, a treasure trove. Even just by sitting on a chair, his cultivation was nearly twice faster than usual. Gathering and amassing spiritual energy was the most important nature of the black winterwood. "Brother Tang, please have a sit." Jia Weili invited Tang Shou to sit down with a warm expression. He then personally brewed a pot of tea and then said with a smile, "Brother Tang, I called my former platoon leader after sending you to Longquan village. I learned from him that you are the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation. You know, that's really amazing. I have tasted a few mouthfuls of the god's nectar produced by your company, but only some rich and powerful people here can buy it, and that is also with great difficulty. Its mellow and fragrant taste is simply an ambrosia made for the gods, giving me an endless aftertaste until now." A smile outlined on the corner of Tang Shou's mouth as he replied, "Brother Jia, you can send 2 men to Star City. I'll let them bring back several boxes of god's nectar for you." Jia Weili's eyes lit up. He excitedly rubbed his hands and smilingly said, "Great, that would be great. Thank you so much, Brother Tang. I will definitely have a good face whenever I invite those friends of mine to dine and drink here if I have several boxes of god's nectar." Tang Shou then glanced at the 8-person square table once again and smilingly said, "Brother Jie, if you like god's nectar, how about striking a business deal and becoming partners? Besides, there's another purpose I had in mind in coming here, too." "What business deal?" asked Jia Weili quickly. While pointing to the 8-person square table, Tang Shou said, "That would be my other purpose." That table? Of furniture? Asked Jia Weili, confused and baffled. Chapter 664, A Pleasant Surprise. Finding black winterwood by chance was an unexpected discovery as well as a surprise to Tang Xiu. After the idea of buying a massive bulk of black winterwood temporarily formed inside his mind, he proposed a cooperation plan taking advantage of Jia Weili's liking of God's nectar. Yup, it's this 8 men square table. To be exact, I want to buy this type of wood. A timber, logging business? Jia Weili stared at Tang Xiu with a stunned expression and immediately replied with a smile, "We have a lot of yellow bark trees here, but its wood is very ordinary. Apart from being heavy, there's no other good trait that I can think of." "How come you want to buy this kind of wood, Brother Tang?" "I want to manufacture furniture with enough weight." "So, may I know the price you offer for this type of wood?" asked Tang Xiu. "To be honest, it's very cheap. The price of yellow bark wood is about 1,600 yuan a ton. Brother Tang, you can tell me how many tons of this wood you need and I'll give it to you directly for a fee. Delivering them is also not an issue. You can load them on the truck first and then ship them by the usual logistic transportation to Star City. Adding all that to the price will only cost you 2,000 yuan a ton." Never did Tang Xiu expect that such a precious lumber in the eyes of numerous cultivators in the immortal world would be so appallingly cheap on Earth. Just 2,000 yuan for a ton of this wood? Then 100 tons meant that he only needed to pay 200,000 yuan. Alright, 500 tons, then. In addition to the 10 boxes of God's nectar I was originally going to give to you, Brother Jia, I'll also add 10 more boxes as extra. But I want the wood to be sent to the port of Guangyang province. Jia Weili calculated in his mind. The sale price for a bottle of God's nectar produced by the magnificent Tang Corporation's winery was 18,888 yuan. One box contained 6 bottles, that would be 113,000 yuan, so 20 boxes would be worth 2.26 million yuan, whereas 500 tons of yellow bark wood along with its shipping fee, was probably about 1 million yuan. One point that must be noted was that there was no market to sell these God's nectar. For people who lived in such a remote area, it was very difficult to buy this wine. Furthermore, if he got 20 boxes of God's nectar, he still had a big use for them as gifts. He definitely would be able to please those government officials as well as gift them to his business partners. The amount of money he could earn by then would be far more than 1 million, wouldn't it? With those, wouldn't he be able to use it to please many groups of people? Brother Tang, if you can sell me 20 boxes of God's nectar in exchange for 500 tons of yellow bark wood every year, I'll personally handle it for you and escort it to the Guangyang province port myself. How about it? Asked him with a nervous expression. All right, deal. Tang Xiu smiled. Lunchtime. Jia Weili served a lavish meal in the horse ranch, and after the lunch, he intended to bring Tang Xiu riding. After discovering that Tang Xiu was not interested in it, he invited Tang Xiu to a hunting ground belonging to his friend. The area was vast and sparsely populated, and some parts of the forested mountain that belonged to some rich people was stockaded. Through various channels of communication, his friend was finally able to obtain the contract, so he started the hunting business in the back. Every year, many rich people came to hunt in this hunting ground, and the owner of the hunting ground made quite a lot of money from it. Originally, Tang Xiu did not have much interest in hunting, but he immediately changed his mind after learning that they were going to hunt with firearms. He rarely had the opportunity to use a gun, and though he had many guns stored inside his interspatial ring, they were seized from enemies and seldom had he the chance to use them. All right, then I'll have to trouble you, Brother Jia. Tang Xiu took out a cigarette, offered one to Jia Weili and ignited it for both of them. He then boarded Jia Weili's car while Mo and the rest drove the 4 Wrangler SUVs. 3 other SUVs were driven by Jia Weili's 6 bodyguards. A convoy of 7 cars then left the horse ranch. Kaunas was one of the few places in the world that could be called pure land on earth. A photographer was never able to fully capture her however excellent his skills and equipment were. And yet, even the photos casually taken would raise admiration and appreciation from those who had seen it. Not only was this place rich in natural resources and biodiversity, but it also had a unique tourism environment and human resources. Inside the SUV, Tang Xiu enjoyed the beautiful scenery along the road. He found that the place not only had the magnificent beauty of the northern region scenery, but also the charming warm beauty of the southern region of the Yangtze River. "Brother Tang, there's Kana's lake over there. It's rumored that the lake has some kind of a lake monster or something. Many people said that they have seen water monsters there, but then again, we can't find out how many of their confessions are true." Jia Weili pointed to the sparkling big lake outside the window after the Wrangler SUV drove for more than an hour. "A lake monster?" Tang Xiu's expression slightly moved. In his mind, he guessed that it was a fierce beast that had gained spiritual wisdom. However, many famous mountains and rivers were said to have fierce beasts inhabiting them, and it was unknown how many of them stayed hidden beneath the vast ocean, so he did not rush to find out. Finding that Tang Xiu seemed indifferent to the topic, nor he did not show the slightest surprise, Jia Weili suddenly made some riddling remarks. "The surface of the lake may look tranquil and calm, but there's some kind of horrifying danger concealed at the bottom of the lake, hidden behind a natural phenomenon that is hard to fathom. Or is it caused by some kind of aquatic monster that is baring its fangs and brandishing its claws? No one has been able to explain this matter, though. And to be honest, I once had the idea to explore it, but I've been kinda lazy all these years. And when the laziness does not get the best of me, then it's a business affair that keeps me occupied. Brother Jia, if you believe me, it's best not to investigate this suspicious aquatic monster. A man only has one life, and the number of strange things in the world is countless. Should there be an aquatic monster living there, the chances of you coming back alive is close to nil," said Tang Xiu lightly. Jia Weili was dumbfounded, and he couldn't help but burst into laughter. "That was so insightful, Brother Tang. Anyhow, I indeed have been living my life in a reckless and blind manner regardless of danger. What was that popular adage again? Curiosity kills the cat, right?" "That's right. It's those words." Tang Xiu only smiled faintly in response and did not say more. After the 7 Wrangler SUV had trekked the road for 2.5 hours, they finally arrived at a certain part of the forested mountain. At the end of the muddy road was actually the entrance to a magnificent-looking manor built behind, with 4 security guards on guard in front of the entrance. Each and every one of them had beards with stocky and sturdy builds, looking fierce and aggressive. Though they were holding electric batons in their hands, something was bulging in their waist. They were apparently carrying knives or firearms. "Welcome, my friends. Welcome. Brother Weili, it's been a long time ago since the last time you visited my grounds, right?" A loud and clear voice like the sound of bells was heard after the SUV drove inside. A middle-aged man with a braided beard and donning a fur coat greeted them, followed by 2 grim and fierce-looking bodyguards. Jia Weili walked towards him and gave the man a big hug. After separating, he smiled and said, "Brother Gasanger, I often wanted to come here to amuse myself, but business got me occupied and troubled all the time, so I have always been busy. In fact, a guest came from a faraway place to visit me, so I brought him here for recreation. Anyways, let me introduce you to this little brother of mine. He's Tang Xiu. My former platoon leader introduced him to me." "Yuan Zhengxian?" Gasanger's brows pricked up. He observed Tang Xiu for a moment before immediately walking forward, reaching out his hand and saying, "Brother Tang, welcome and have some fun. I'm Gasanger, the owner of this hunting ground." "Nice to meet you, Brother Gasanger," said Tang Xiu with a smile. Gasanger nodded in response and glanced at Immortal and the rest on the Wrangler SUV behind. He could instantly tell that Tang Xiu's identity in the mainland was probably not simple, Else it would be impossible for him to have so many bodyguards around him. All right, let's board the car. I'll entertain you with good wine and meat as the host. The cars then continued driving for a few kilometers and then stopped at the parking space in front of several two-storied buildings. After getting off the car, they walked straight to the two-story building in the center and then entered the luxuriously decorated living room. Only Mo followed Tang Xiu, whereas the other 10 men stayed outside. As the wine and meat were brought in, Jia Weili smiled and asked, "Brother Gasanger, the guests who visit your place should be few in number this season, no? After all, we are just at the beginning of the year. There have been a few visitors at this time of the year in the past, but speaking about that, this year is kind of strange." Gasanger smilingly replied. "A dozen guests arrived in these 3 days, thus nearly half of the rooms in my hunting ground manor are occupied. Speaking about it, the number of people with money from the mainland is getting more and more. They spend money like pouring water here, asking for the best service available and the most exciting hunting experience as well." Eh? Jia Weili was surprised and commented, "So, your business is very good now? All right, let's not talk about that, shall we?" Gasanger waved his hand and said with a smile, "Anyways, where do you come from, Brother Tang? And what business do you engage in?" "Well, I'm from Shuangqing Province's Star City, and I do some liquor, cosmetic, and healthcare business," said Tang Xiu with a smile. Gasanger nodded and did not ask any more. Nowadays, there were all sorts of businesses, along with too many rich people to count. As the owner of this place, he only needed to warmly greet the guests who came here. Those 2 questions he asked Tang Xiu was because he was the friend of Jia Weili brought here. "All right, let's drink and have some meat. After we are full, I'll personally take you to the armory to pick some weapons for yourself. Many wild animals are in hibernation in this cold season, but many of them still come out to hunt for food. If you're lucky, you may encounter some bears in the back of the mountain though." Tang Xiu and Jia Weili had drunk a lot of wine previously, but they still welcome it by drinking a lot of wine and wolfing down the meat under Gasanger's great hospitality, showing their appreciation for his character, all of which met the Gasanger's praise. "Make way. I want to see Gasanger." A rude voice came from the outside, and the sound of a ruckus could be heard even as everyone enjoyed their drinks. Gasanger's black brows furrowed and yelled at the door, "Hey, let the guest come inside. If they want to drink together with me, I still have enough here." Immediately, the door was pushed from the outside as 2 young men came in with their 4 bodyguards. One of them, whose hair was bleached white and wore a gold chain around his neck, did not look at Tang Xiu and Jia Weili as he straightly looked at Gasanger and shouted, "Gasanger, I want the crossbow and its bolts in your warehouse to be rented to me. I'll pay 10 times the price." The other young man, however, glanced around the room. His pupils suddenly contracted and his body slightly trembled when he saw Tang Xiu. He subconsciously touched his face and instantly grabbed the arm of the bleached white-haired youth. Chapter 665, Solving Enmity. The bleached-haired young man glanced at his friend with a surprised expression. What he could not understand was that his friend, who had always been fearless, unexpectedly looked a bit pale. As he followed the direction he was looking at, his sight then fell on Tang Xiu. Well, what a coincidence. Tang Xiu himself looked unfazed and calm and spoke in a casual manner. He also did not expect to bump into an old acquaintance in such a remote place in the western region. More so that this acquaintance was one he once trashed miserably before. The bleached-haired youth pointed to Tang Xiu and asked him, "Do you know this kiddo, Wang Hu?" The stocky Wang Hu hesitated for a moment before finally nodding. The fear and alarmed expression he had was then replaced by resentment. Tang Xiu once trashed him back when he was with a group of Scions in Li Xueming's region amusement clubhouse in Jingmen Island. The reason was that of the princess of the Ouyang family, Ouyang Lulu. That time, he got beaten and kicked out of Jingmen Island, the biggest shame and humiliation he had ever had since his childhood till now. Although his Wang family was very powerful in the northwest region, it was not that powerful in Jingmen Island, more so that the Ouyang family was more powerful than his Wang family, hence settling the account with the Ouyang family was evidently not realistic. However, he vividly remembered the guy who trashed him back then, Tang Xiu. He had always been hoping that he would encounter this punk again to wipe off this shame, but never did he expect that he would bump into him in this place. He also didn't expect that his first feeling when seeing Tang Xiu again would unexpectedly be fear. It was because of this fear that he felt deeply humiliated and disgraced. After hearing the question from the bleached-haired young man, Wang Hu resentfully replied while glaring at Tang Xiu, "He's my mortal enemy." The bleached-haired youth rolled his eyes and snappily said, "Then why don't you kill him directly since he's your enemy? This place is remote and desolate, it would be easy to dump a corpse and obliterate all traces." Wang Hu's face slightly changed, then was replaced with pleasant surprise since what his friend said was right. One could kill someone and casually dump the body in some remote place to rot and turn into mud in the western region, while the chance of being discovered would be close to nil. He knew that Tang Xiu's personal combat strength was very formidable, but his friends who came here with him were all experts from the Xian house. He could ask any of these experts and casually pay them, they probably had countless ways to kill Tang Xiu. As he thought up to there, Wang Hu took a step forward, glared at Tang Xiu and coldly shouted, "You never expected that you'd bump into me here, did you, Tang Punk? The road to heaven is fucking there yet you don't take it, for you always head toward hell though there's no road to it, huh? I, Wang Hu, guarantee that you will pass through that door fainted today." Tang Xiu could not restrain himself as he laughed and said, "Well, you still remember my threat last time, eh? Was leaving the place fainted so miserable for you? Don't tell me a dog can't stop himself from eating shit, just like your bad habits are hard to change? Do you want me to give you another good lesson?" Wang Hu grinned hideously and said, "Surname Tang, have you heard the words that anyone who can change in a short period of time deserves to be treated differently? This father is now a member of Xian House, so it's fucking easy for this father to kill you now even though you have a bit of ability in Kung Fu." A member of the Xian House? Tang Xiu slightly furrowed his brows as cast his eyes on the bleached-haired young man and said lightly, "And who are you?" "Xian Yugu," said the bleached-haired young man proudly. "Never heard of you," replied Tang Xiu nonchalantly. Xian Yugu's face changed as he glared at Tang Xiu and scowled, "You are courting death. What audacity." The owner of the hunting ground, Gasanger, suddenly grabbed the hunting knife on the side and stabbed it on the table, as he immediately got up and loudly said, "I don't give a fuck to what kind of resentment exists between all of you. Shortly put, this place is my hunting ground and everything must be played according to the rules of my hunting ground. You are not to have a private fight in my place unless you all sign the life and death pact and go to the back of the forested mountain. Gasanger, it's best for you to avoid trouble whenever possible, for fewer troubles mean that you can live a bit longer," said Xian Yugu coldly. Gasanger slammed the table. He picked out a black ornamental thumb ring on his right thumb and quickly put it on his left hand's thumb, as he then growled in anger, "I may have dreaded if those words were spoken by the patriarch of Xian House. But who the hell is a little brat like you to dare to say those words, huh? Do you not believe that I can tear open your dog's mouth? Black ornamental thumb ring?" With contracted pupils, Xian Yugu staggeringly stepped backward. There was a consensus among those in the Strange Doors lineage that the black ornamental thumb ring could only be obtained by the most powerful sect masters or clan patriarchs who were recognized by all forces under the Strange Doors lineage. He originally thought that Gasanger was only an ordinary man, but it turned out that the man was unexpectedly someone like the Xian House, and the most important thing was that he was also one of the strongest, leaving him unable to believe it. However, Wang Hu just became a member of the Xian House for a short time and was naturally unaware of this matter. Nevertheless, he could faintly guess that Gasanger might have a special identity upon seeing Xian Yugu's unusual response. And yet, he had no fear since his enemy was not Gasanger. He then quickly came to Xian Yugu's side and whispered to him, and after getting his consent, he looked at Tang Xiu and sneered. Surnamed Tang, I believe you also heard the words spoken by the owner of this hunting ground. Let's sign the life and death pact if you have the balls and have a fight to the death in the back of the mountain. Whoever loses will leave his life there, and the winner will come out of that place alive. Do you dare? Brother Tang. Finally, Jia Weili somewhat regretted bringing Tang Xiu to the hunting ground. Tang Xiu would not have met his enemy had he not brought him here. Brother Jia, it's a personal enmity between me and him, so you should just watch the show. I will sign this life and death pact, but shouldn't you explain how the rules are played? Wang Hu had yet to speak when Xian Yugu spoke with a sullen face. 3 men from both sides will play the game and enter the back of the mountain to fight to the death. It's fine whether you use guns or blades, but the victor can only come out from the back of the mountain if the 3 men from the opposite party die. All right, I'm in. Tang Xiu got up straightly. He looked at Gesangzhi and said with a smile, Brother Gesangzhi, I'll have to trouble you to take us to the hunting ground armory. After all, we're going to play some killing games with them, so if we don't choose some weapons while in passing, we would be sinners if we can't come back and continue accompanying you drinking. Gesangzhi squinted his eyes and shot a deep gaze at Tang Xiu. After which, only then did he pull up his hunting knife and loudly replied, Things have gotten to this point, so let's go to the armory. And you, Xian brat, didn't you want to rent a crossbow and its bolts? Follow me and no one will fight it over with you. Half an hour later, Tang Xiu brought a hunting rifle he picked from the armory and stood at the entrance of the hiking trek. The hills in the back were not too high, the highest peak was only 100+ meters high. For signing up the life and death pact, he took Mo Ao and another expert and then trekked the hiking trail. A few meters in front of them, Wang Hu and Xian Yugu were standing side by side, followed by a middle-aged man holding a 2-handed saber. The middle-aged man's looks were ordinary, but the aura he emitted out was very strange, and Tang Xiu could not hear his breathing if he did not focus his hearing on it despite his high cultivation. At this time, the guests who came to the hunting ground and were invited from the back of the mountain now arrived at the place was close to 100 people. Tang Xiu himself was quite surprised since he found some unusual issues. One of which was that 2 people among them he had seen participating in the underground auction in Beijing. One of them even competed with him on an item. The rest of them mostly had abnormal auras, while some wore the amulets he crafted. It seems that most of these people are from Xian House. Only, there are so many people from Xian House gathered here, what exactly is their purpose? Secretly thought Tang Xiu. All right, to the mountains. Gesangzhi apparently knew the identity of the middle-aged man behind Xian Yugu, and there was even a bit of dread on his face when he looked at him. The man sighed inwardly and his expression when he looked at Tang Xiu was filled with pity. For an ordinary person, however formidable his martial arts was, encountering people from the Strange Doors lineage would probably leave him falling in his own blood. He could tell something, the chance of Tang Xiu surviving was close to none. He was not the only one who thought so, but even the nearly 100 people from Xian House, who obviously knew who Xian Yugu was, were looking at Tang Xiu like he was dead already. What a pity! A respectable young divine doctor does not stay honest to practice his medicine skills and give medical treatment, and even unexpectedly provoked the people from the Xian House. This is akin to courting his own death. Yeah, this time Tang Xiu is dead. Take a look at the man beside Xian Yugu. He's the hall master of the Serenity Sect's Justice Hall. I heard that he had a fortuitous encounter and, coupled with the secret technique of Serenity Sect to concoct medicine to temper his body, it is said that his body is nearly invulnerable. I've seen him in mortal combat, he's very strong. I don't know who can deal with him unless it's those old monsters from the Strange Doors. It's just stupid. He challenged people from the Strange Doors. He's just looking for his own death. Oh. With his keen hearing, Tang Xiu could clearly hear their comments even though their voices were low and some distance away from him. He inwardly sneered at them, But he maintained unperturbed expression on the surface as he led Mo and his comrade to trek on the mountain pathway. 10 minutes later, Tang Xiu stood on a big tree and calmly observed for the slightest sign of disturbance from the wind and grass in the surroundings. He had never looked down on anyone and took whoever he would face seriously, for he had seen too many occasions where people ended up miserable due to unexpected things. They are coming. After seeing the flash of a shadow in the distance through the gap between the twigs, Tang Xiu pointed toward that direction and said, "Oh, keep the life of that two brats and bring them here to see me. As for the other man, kill him." Mo nodded and his figure instantly vanished. In the forested mountain hundreds of meters away, Xian Yugu and Wang Hu looked very relaxed, like they were enjoying the beautiful scenery nature presented them. They occasionally glanced around with vigilance. But the middle-aged man beside them was particularly vigilant, and the slightest disturbance would alert him. Whoosh whoosh. A blurry figure flashed before the eyes of the trio as the sharp blade of a dagger swept past Wang Hu and Xian Yugu's right wrists, causing the guns in their hands to fall amidst the splattering blood. "Get the fuck out of here." The middle-aged man's face changed greatly as he raised the two-handed saber in his hands in panic and ferociously faced the shadowy figure. He slashed it, and the blade hacked down with a whooshing sound. But at this time, a hand was already strangling him.